Let's talk about some early season strategies because, mine, I didn't think I'd be talking about this early in the season, but here we are. But we got to talk about starting the season off on the right foot. We want to set ourselves up for success this year and next. So that's why these strategies are important now. And we're going to talk about how we deploy said strategies. Nate, starting with you, my friend.
I get to talk about the most fun strategy because we all love rookies. We all love rookies.
Yes.
And we've been spoiled. We've been absolutely spoiled. And if you don't know that, go back and look at where Dynasty drafts, what they were doing like from 2010 to 2018. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people didn't play Dynasty back then. It was much smaller. But you look at those first round picks, you look at how those rookies played right away. It's nothing like today. Right now, rookies are coming into the NFL and they're taking off within the first couple of weeks. We've seen it all too much with some of these wide receivers, especially taking off very early. But we've been spoiled. You need to have patience with your rookies. They're not going to all pop off week 1. Not going to all pop off by week 5 either. If you go back and look at rookies' production, a lot of times that production does not come until after the bye week. A lot of times, the first half of the season, the rookies are just trying to get up to speed with the NFL. And then the bye week comes around, and they're up to speed now. So the coaches are looking around, and they're like, hey, we need someone to take us to the next level. Hey, that rookie's up to speed now. Let's make him part of our game plan. And that's where we see a lot of these guys take off. So there's a reason that a lot of rookies finish the year strong because they don't really break out until halfway through, except for the top guys who break out in the first couple of weeks. So you need to be patient with your rookies. We're going to have a variety of times when people break out. Some of them won't break out until their sophomore or third season, and that's okay. Those are the guys that hopefully you're stashing away on your taxi squad. The rookies this year, we need to be patient with them just because they don't come out strong right away. Zach Charbonnet, he's dealt with injury. He's not going to be a guy that has come out strong right away, but he's a guy that we need to keep in mind because by week 8, Zach Charbonnet could be someone that we're really happy to have in our flex spot. We know the talent's there. Don't let the first couple weeks of the NFL, change your judgment. Jonathan Mingo, he got a ton of opportunities week 1, didn't create fantasy points out of that, but he's got a rookie quarterback. They were, the offense hasn't gelled yet, but by the time we get to week 10, week 12, hey, Jonathan Mingo might be Bryce Young's favorite target. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of competition out there, right? So, we're not going to give up on these guys week 1, just like we're not going to overreact too much. We got Puka Nacua out there who had an incredible week 1. Currently, as of recording on this Tuesday night before week 2, I went on Keep Trade Cut just to see what we were all feeling as a community about Puka Nacua. And he's currently going as wide receiver 37 overall right now. That kind of just blows my mind a little bit. That's a pretty strong swing. That is over Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Marquise Brown, Mike Williams, other rookies like Marvin Mims, Jonathan Mingo. Look, Puka Nacua might be the next Cooper Kupp. I don't know. But it seems a little ignorant to think that off of one game. Let's see how it plays out. If you can sell Puka Nacua right now for Christian Kirk, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, I think that would be a wonderful deal to do.
Nate's telling us that Puka Nacua is, in fact, the next Cooper Kupp. So you can go ahead and lock that up.
If week 2 he came out and he put up another 10 receptions for 100-plus yards, you know what? Hold on to him. Don't sell him at that point.
Yeah, I think at that point you got to hold on.
You got to put him in your lineup, man.
Nate, thank you, Chev. What early season strategy are you deploying?
My strategy I'm going with is, just finding players that have consistent roles on the waivers and don't blow your load. Nate just talked about Puka Nacua. I mean, I'm in a decent amount of short benches. So Puka Nacua I saw is on some of these waivers. And he's going at wide receiver 36 on Keep Trade Cut right now. If you can go acquire Puka and not just blow your load, now is the time to go get him and move off of him after another big game if he has it. It looked like he plays the role of Cooper Kupp in that offense with Matthew Stafford. If he continues to have another good game, I mean, he's going to boost up even more after this upcoming week. So I think you have to find the guys that have consistent roles. I mean, he saw double-digit targets. A guy that I'm kind of staying away from, Justice Hill or Gus Edwards, I just don't trust that offense. So I'm trying to stay away from that. I don't know who is going to lead that offense. You have Lamar Jackson there. He's going to be a guy that's going to be looking to probably run the football a little bit more to keep that offense on the field, keep them moving. So I'm probably staying away from that Ravens running back room. I think Joshua Kelly is another guy who has opportunity in the next few weeks. He saw, I believe, 15 carries. Eckler's battling with an ankle injury at this moment. He's a guy that they want to have furthered on along through the season. I can see where they maybe load management him. And the NFL is just going to 2 running back schemes as well. We've seen it. It's going to keep happening. These guys have to share the room at this point. And another thing I think we need to think about is, these players, they're going to see multiple offensive coordinators if they're on a crappy team sometimes. And those players don't seem to produce right away. We've seen players get new offensive coaches, new playbooks that they have to learn. And it's a lot of younger players as well that this happens to. I think we need to focus on that a little bit more in the offseason, just to temper our expectations and maybe even move off some players if we think that could be a hindrance to them moving forward. Focusing on the players that you're actually picking up and the players that are actually going to give you fantasy points and consistency and that are going to gain more value throughout the season.
I didn't want to have to talk about this so early in the season, but this is where we're at, man. It's how it goes. Talking about injury management. Normally, I would hope to wait until at least week 4 or 5 to have to really have some concerns. And this is where depth comes into play as well. Depth is one of the most important pieces to fantasy football. You have to set a roster from now until roughly January-ish. So you have to know, do you need to make any moves? No panic moves, please. No panicking. Or is my team deep enough to compete? So I've been pretty lucky so far with the moves that I've had to make. It's just been a couple places I had to elevate Luke Musgrave off the taxi squad because, I have a lot of Greg Dulcich. I've been a Dulcich fan since before he was drafted by the Denver Broncos. And I'm a big Musgrave guy too. So he's had a good week 1. I'll throw him right in there. There's not really a ton out on the waiver wire. Do I have any injuries that I think are going to overlap with bye weeks? So things that you have to think about as well. This is assuming a worst case scenario. By the way, bye weeks do run weeks 5 through 14. However, there's no bye weeks, no teams on bye weeks in weeks 8 and 12. So putting this into practice, it's kind of multifaceted. I'm not only looking for value trades, maybe a guy like Puka Nacua, if I think he's going to help me for a few weeks till Cooper Kupp comes back. You got to come to the waiver wire for any sort of upgrades or even handcuffs, guys like that. One thing that I've started to do is as soon as the Monday night games are over, well, I'm in bed by the time the Monday night game's over, but I start setting my lineups on Tuesday morning. And I think that gives you a really good gauge on what does my team actually look like. So I started doing with roster reviews as well when we do those, payup.com/Dynasty Rewind. If you'd like one, I do a starting lineup to see what the lineup looks like because just thinking about, okay, this player's out, how does that affect your lineup? That's important right now. Like I said, we set these lineups until January. So I want to see how it affects my lineup, what I can do to make my lineup better. Running backs are always going to be a hot commodity on the waiver wire. Running backs get hurt a lot too, although Breece Hall apparently, don't tell him that it takes a while to come back from an injury.
Shout out sports medicine.
Manage your injuries. These are really important things to look at right now. Like I said, I didn't want it to do it this early in the season, but here we are. All right, so just one question for you guys. What are the best strategies for trading for future draft capital during the season if you're a rebuilding team, if you're a competitive team? What kind of strategies do you deploy? Deploy is the word of the podcast. Nate, what about you? What are you doing here if you want to get some future draft capital? I feel like it's going to be very different in each scenario, but what are you doing?
Yeah, I'll take the competitive side. Chev, you want the rebuilding side?
Sure.
So as a competitive side, it kind of seems counterproductive or counterintuitive maybe to go out there and acquire future draft capital in season because obviously you're focused on this season, right? You don't need to be giving up assets for the future. But hey, this is Dynasty. This is not redraft. We want to make sure that we have, some ammo to refill our position, to retool every single year, bring in that young blood, bring in that depth. As a competitive team, we might not have our first. We might have given up our first to make sure that we are the contending team, which means we don't have a first-round pick. Now, do we go out there and get another first-round pick? That's difficult, man. It's difficult to get first-round picks these days because people understand the value of a first-round pick. And even as a late first, it's hard to go out there and acquire a late first if it's on a team that is already looking towards the future. So as a competitive team, without giving up a ton of current production, if you're trying to go acquire future draft capital, it's best to go out there and look at second-round picks, third-round picks, because hopefully you're a competitive team. You already have those top players in your starting lineup that fit your 2 to 3 year window. You need to make sure you're just constantly churning through the bottom of your roster, making sure that you're creating good depth year in and year out. That way, when you have some of those injuries come up, you have that depth to pull into your starting roster. You have a bunch of those second-round picks where you've been able to pick up players that have been able to make an impact. Maybe they're not the studs that you need in your lineup, but you're a competitive team. You already have those guys. Go out there, try to acquire some seconds, flip some of those guys from the waivers, flip some of your depth that you don't necessarily believe in for future second-round picks to continue to bring in some new depth. I think that's a really great way to look at future draft capital as a competitive team.
Chev, what are you doing as a rebuilder here?
Yeah, and it can be hard as a competitive team because trading away your first now, it's going to be easier now, I think, because if you're a competitive team and you're the top team in the league, they know that pick's going to be late. So I think it's a lot easier to trade the pick away now, in my opinion, because if I'm in first or second, people are not going to really want that pick as highly as maybe now. They don't maybe not know what you're doing. So, for rebuilding, I think it's okay to wait a little bit, to wait till these players pop off. We have to sell these guys at the right value. If you're rebuilding, you're really not trying to win anyways. If these players are sucking, you can leave them on your team and continue to maybe the tank a little bit. But I like waiting a little bit till the trade deadline's a little bit closer, when people start to get a little scared because their players are getting injured, and when the depth starts to get a little bit less. That's when I like to trade these players away, because these other managers, they like to overpay now because they think they can win the championship. I'm trying to target guys that maybe aren't the top competitive team. Maybe they're the third or fourth competitive team and they think they maybe have a chance. I'm looking to gain those picks because those picks are going to be lower in my opinion, and it's going to give me better value when that pick turns into an actual number at that point. So I am looking to find ways to trade these guys when their value is the highest. And Drake London is a guy that had one target last week. Now is not the time to trade. That's a guy maybe you as a rebuilding team look to go get, because maybe these contenders are a little bit scared if they have him. He's 22 years old. Same thing with Kyle Pitts, 22 years old. A lot of football left in their young careers. So I'm a guy that likes to wait until it's closer to the trade deadline. That way these competitive teams are squirming a little bit, and I think it just makes a little bit more sense at that point.